It looks like an ordinary penny. Copper brown. Worn. The kind you wouldn't even bend down to pick up in a parking lot. But what if I told you that one version of this humble coin has been whispered about in collector circles as a hidden jackpot, a single cent that has stunned the market, shattered expectations, and in top condition has been linked to reported values reaching as high as $844,000, and here's the part that keeps people up at night, it might still be out there right now in someone's change jar. In a forgotten piggy bank. In a drawer you haven't opened in years, because the story of the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent isn't just about a coin. It's about a moment in American history when the U.S. Mint made a transition so chaotic, so complex, that it created a perfect storm for rare varieties, hidden errors, and the kind of accidental treasures that turn everyday people into headline stories overnight. Let's go back. 1982 was a year of change. Inflation was rising. Copper prices were soaring. And for the first time in generations, the U.S. Mint made a dramatic decision. They would shift the Lincoln cent from solid copper to a copper-plated zinc core, but the transition wasn't clean. It wasn't simple. It was messy. 7 different varieties of the 1982 Lincoln cent were struck, different compositions, different date sizes, different mint locations. It was a logistical scramble. Multiple presses running. Dies being swapped. Planchets being mixed. A perfect breeding ground for mistakes, and hidden in that confusion is where the legend begins. The no-mint mark. To the untrained eye, that's normal. Philadelphia coins traditionally carried no mint mark for most of the 20th century. But here's where the tension starts to build. In 1982, identifying the origin of a cent wasn't just about the mint mark. It was about weight, composition, date, style. Tiny details that most people never even think to look for, and when those details align in just the right way, the coin stops being 1 cent and starts becoming a 5-figure, 6-figure, potentially life-changing discovery. So what makes this coin so electrifying? It's the collision of two worlds, copper and zinc. The earlier 1982 cents were struck in the traditional 95% copper alloy. They weigh about 3.11 grams. The later zinc versions dropped to around 2.5 grams. Now imagine finding a no-mint mark 1982 cent that defies expectations. A coin that looks ordinary, but when placed on a scale reveals the heavier copper weight. A coin that shouldn't exist in that combination, but does. That's when collectors lean forward. That's when the room goes quiet, because the rarest varieties aren't just coins, they're anomalies, and anomalies bring money, serious money. Stories have circulated through auctions and private sales of pristine examples commanding staggering prices. Coins that sat unnoticed for decades suddenly being authenticated, graded at the highest levels, and entering a marketplace where elite collectors compete like predators. Why? Because condition is everything. In circulated form, it's a curiosity. In mint state, it's a prize. In near perfect preservation, it becomes a phenomenon, and when a top condition example appears, the bidding doesn't start in the hundreds. It doesn't start in the thousands. It explodes. This is where the reported figure of $844,000 enters the conversation, a number so shocking it doesn't sound real for a penny. Yet in the world of elite coin collecting, where population reports show only a handful of top-tier survivors, where registries set collectors battle for the number one slot, that kind of price becomes a psychological tipping point, because it's no longer about the coin. It's about winning. It's about owning the best, and the best is always rare. But here's the twist that makes this story personal, painfully personal for millions of Americans. Most of these coins didn't go straight into collections, they went into circulation. They passed through grocery stores, gas stations, vending machines. They were handed back as change, dropped into tip jars, rolled up in bank wrappers, ignored, and every time one of those coins changed hands, the opportunity moved with it. How many people spent one without ever knowing? How many are still out there? How many are sitting in your house right now? Because unlike gold bars or rare paintings, this treasure doesn't require a vault. It requires awareness, a scale, and the willingness to look. Think about the psychology for a moment. We've been trained to believe that wealth comes from something big, a promotion, an investment, a winning ticket. But the 1982 no-mint mark Lincoln cent flips that belief upside down. What if wealth comes from something you already have? What if the most valuable thing in your home is in a jar labeled spare change? What if the coin you need to find has already passed through your hands, and you just didn't know what to look for? This is why the hunt is addictive, because it's not fantasy. It has happened. Ordinary people have discovered extraordinary coins while searching through rolls from the bank. They've felt the jolt of adrenaline when the date matches, when the mint mark is missing, when the weight on the scale lands exactly where it shouldn't, that moment, that single second, when a penny becomes a possibility. And here's the part most people never realize: the market for these coins isn't slowing down. As more examples are permanently locked away in private collections, the available supply shrinks. Demand, driven by new collectors and competitive registry rankings, keeps climbing, which means every genuine discovery becomes more powerful than the last, more valuable, more urgent. So the real question isn't whether the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln cent is rare. The real question is this: are you willing to look? Are you willing to check the dates, to weigh the coins, to separate the copper from the zinc? Because the difference between someone who finds one of these and someone who doesn't isn't luck. It's attention, not its curiosity. It's the decision to believe that something extraordinary could be hiding in something ordinary, and that belief has already turned pocket change into down payments, into college funds, into retirement accounts, not because the coin changed, but because someone finally saw it. So tonight, when you walk past that jar of pennies, you'll feel it, that pull of that question: what if? What if the coin that could change everything is already in your home? What if the next headline isn't about someone else, but about you? Because the story of the 1982 no mint mark Lincoln cent is still being written. Every day another roll is opened, another collection is searched, another coin is weighed, and somewhere in America, someone is about to experience the moment when a single cent rewrites their future. The only question left: will you be the one who finds it? In 1981, millions of pennies rolled off the presses and into everyday pockets, cash registers, and coffee cans across America. Most were spent without a second thought. Most were lost to couch cushions in parking lots. Most were ignored. But hidden among them, quietly, almost invisibly, was a version of the Lincoln cent that today sends shockwaves through the coin collecting world. A simple penny. No mint mark. And in the right condition, worth a fortune that has stunned even seasoned experts. Imagine this for a moment. You're standing at your kitchen counter. A jar of loose change sits in front of you. You start flipping through the coins, not expecting anything, and suddenly your fingers freeze. The date reads 1981. You look for the mint mark. There isn't one. Your heart skips. Could this be the one? Could this be the coin that turns spare change into life-changing money? Because here's the part that stops people in their tracks. Top condition examples have been reported in the market at values reaching as high as $844,000. For a penny. A single cent. The kind most people toss into tip jars without looking, and that's where the story begins. To understand why this coin has become a legend, you have to go back to a turning point in American coinage. 1981 was a year of transition. The U.S. Mint was preparing for one of the biggest changes in the history of the Lincoln cent, the shift from the traditional copper composition to the copper-plated zinc cents that would debut in 1982. Production methods were evolving. Dies were wearing down. Quality control was under pressure. And in the middle of all that, subtle variations were created, variations most people never noticed, but collectors did, and what they found changed everything. The 1981 Lincoln cent with no mint mark was struck in Philadelphia, as millions were. That alone isn't rare. But certain examples, those with exceptional strike quality, pristine surfaces, and specific die characteristics, are so elusive in high grades that they become the holy grail for modern cent collectors. Here's the twist: it's not just about the missing mint mark. It's about condition. It's about microscopic details. It's about whether the coin was preserved perfectly from the moment it left the press. And that's what makes this story so electrifying, because theoretically, one could still be out there. In circulation. In drawer. In your change. Let that sink in. Most people think valuable coins are ancient, buried in shipwrecks, or locked away in museums. But this one? This one was used to buy groceries. This one paid for vending machine snacks. This one might have passed through thousands of hands before someone realized what they were holding, and when they did, everything changed. Collectors began hunting. Roll searching exploded in popularity. Coin shows buzzed with whispers about high-grade 1981 cents. Auction houses watched as pristine examples climbed higher and higher in value. And every time a top-condition piece appeared, it reignited the same question across the country: how many are still out there? Because here's the truth that fuels the dream: most 1981 pennies are worth exactly 1 cent, but the rare, flawless survivors, the ones graded at the very top of the scale, are almost impossibly scarce. We're talking about coins that look today exactly as they did the moment they were struck. No nicks. No scratches. No dulling of luster. A blazing red surface that seems to glow under light, and when one of those appears on the market, the bidding can become fierce. Emotional. Competitive. Because serious collectors know they may not see another for years. So what makes a coin reach that level? It's the strike, sharp, full detail in Lincoln's hair and the wheat-like lines of the memorial reversed. It's the color, deep, original red that hasn't faded. It's the surfaces, clean enough to look almost unreal. And it's the grade, those tiny numbers on a slab, that can mean the difference between a few dollars and a staggering six-figure result. Here's the part most people never hear: the difference between an ordinary 1981 penny and one worth thousands or more can be invisible to the untrained eye. Two coins can look identical in your hand, but under magnification, one tells a completely different story. That's the cliffhanger that keeps collectors searching, because what if you've already held one and didn't know? What if it's sitting somewhere right now, waiting? Stories have surfaced of people discovering high-grade coins in bankrolls, in inherited collections, in forgotten folders. Coins that were ignored for decades, only to be authenticated and suddenly valued at levels that sound almost impossible for a penny. And this is where the urgency kicks in. Every year, more of these coins are damaged, cleaned, or lost. Every year, the number of surviving pristine examples becomes smaller. Which means the ones that remain? They become more desirable, more competitive, more valuable. So the question isn't just what this coin is worth today, the question is what it could be worth tomorrow. Because the market for elite condition modern coins has been evolving. Collectors who once focused only on 19th century rarities are now chasing the finest known examples of coins from the 1970s, 80s, and 90s. Registry set competition has turned grade into a battleground. And when only a handful of coins exist at the very top, price becomes almost secondary. Ownership becomes the prize. Think about that for a second. A coin that millions of Americans handled without a thought has become a trophy item in one of the most competitive areas of numismatics, and yet, the possibility remains, because not every coin has been examined, not every jar has been searched, not every collection has been opened to somewhere. Right now, there could be a 1981 no-mint mark Lincoln cent, with blazing red luster and razor-sharp detail, completely unknown to its owner. And that brings us to the moment of truth. If you found one, would you recognize it? Would you know what to look for? The sharpness of the strike, the untouched surfaces, the vibrant original color, the absence of wear, the tiny details that separate ordinary from extraordinary. Because this is the reality, life-changing finds don't announce themselves. They sit quietly, waiting for someone curious enough to look closer, and that's why this story matters. It's not just about a coin, it's about the possibility that something extraordinary could already be in your possession. It's about the idea that wealth isn't always found in vaults, it can be hiding in plain sight. It's about the thrill of the hunt. So tonight, when you walk past that jar of change, will you ignore it? Or will you stop, pour it out, and start looking, because somewhere out there, another 1981 Lincoln cent with no mint mark, perfectly preserved, blazing red, nearly flawless, is waiting to be discovered. And when it is, the headlines will appear again. A penny, 1 cent worth a fortune, and the only question that will matter is this: will the next one be yours? In 1978, millions of pennies rolled off the presses in Denver, ordinary, copper-colored, easily ignored. They clinked into pockets, disappeared into jars, vanished into couch cushions. Most people never gave them a second glance. But what if one of those tiny coins, one you've touched, one you may still own, holds a value so shocking it could change your life overnight? Because hidden among those billions are stories of a 1978 Lincoln cent that collectors whisper about. Coins pulled from circulation and sent to auction rooms under bright lights. Coins that didn't sell for a penny or a dollar, but for staggering sums that defy belief. And here's the question that keeps treasure hunters awake at night: what if the next one is sitting in your home right now? The 1978 Lincoln cent doesn't look special at first. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile. The Lincoln Memorial on the reverse. A small D mint mark beneath the date. Simple. Common. Forgettable. Or is it? Because in the world of rare coins, the smallest detail can turn pocket change into a fortune. A microscopic doubling. A barely visible die crack. A surface so flawless it looks frozen in time. These are the details that transform an everyday cent into a collector's obsession, and when you start to understand what to look for, the ordinary begins to feel dangerous. Every penny becomes a possibility. Billions were struck in Denver that year, more than 4 billion, in fact. That should make them worthless, right? That's what most people think. That's why they spend them without looking, but mass production is exactly what creates the rare survivors, because somewhere in that avalanche of coins were a handful that escaped into the world in a state of near perfection. Coins that never saw circulation. Coins that were preserved like time capsules from 1978. Coins graded at the very top of the scale, MS-67, MS-68, and beyond, and when one of those perfect examples appears at auction, the room changes, bidders lean forward. Hearts race. Numbers climb. Why? Because condition is everything. A 1978 D Lincoln cent in worn condition might be worth a single cent. But in pristine, flawless, blazing red mint state, the kind of coin that looks like it was struck yesterday, its value can explode into thousands. Tens of thousands. And in the most legendary cases, into numbers that sound unreal to anyone outside the coin world. That's the twist most people never see coming. The difference between a coin worth 1 cent and one worth a life-changing sum isn't the date. It isn't the design. It's the preservation. The rarity of perfection, and then there are the errors, because no minting process is perfect. Some 1978 D cents left the press with subtle doubled lettering, a shadow-like effect that only sharp eyes can detect. Others show repunched mint marks, where the D appears slightly doubled, a ghost of a second strike hiding beneath the first. There are off-center strikes that look like the coin slid away at the last second. Die cracks that cut across Lincoln's portrait like lightning frozen in metal. Each one is a fingerprint of a mistake, and in the world of collecting, mistakes are priceless. Imagine holding a coin that was never supposed to exist in that form. Imagine being the first person to notice it. That's not just a find. That's a discovery, and discoveries create headlines. Over the years, pristine examples of the 1978 D Lincoln cent have stunned the market. High-grade specimens have shattered expectations, climbing into five-figure territory and beyond. In the rarefied air of top population coins, the finest known, the bidding wars become legendary, because collectors don't just buy coins. They buy the best, the single finest. The one no one else can match. That's how a coin most people ignore becomes the centerpiece of a high-stakes auction. And here's the part that should make you sit up straighter. Most of these coins were found by ordinary people, not treasure hunters with metal detectors. Not dealers with vaults. Regular individuals who took a second look at their change. People who noticed something different. People who asked one simple question: what if the coin in your hand is one of the rare survivors? What if it has full, blazing red luster untouched by time? What if the strike is sharper than usual, the surface is cleaner, the detail stronger? What if the mint made a mistake, and it ended up with you? This is why the 1978 D cent has become a quiet legend among collectors. Not because every example is valuable, far from it, but because the possibility is real, because the difference between common and extraordinary is often invisible to the untrained eye, and because the payoff can be enormous. Think about the journey of a single coin, struck in Denver nearly half a century ago, dropped into a bank bag, released into circulation. Spent on a cup of coffee in 1983. Saved in a jar in 1992. Forgotten in a drawer for 30 years, until one day, someone opens that drawer, someone looks closer, someone realizes they're holding a coin with flawless surfaces, blazing original color, and razor-sharp detail. That's not just a coin anymore. That's a moment. A moment that can turn into a grading submission, an auction listing, a bidding war. A moment that can turn into a check that changes everything. And yet, most people will never experience it, not because the coins don't exist, but because they never look. They assume a penny is just a penny. They assume wealth only comes in big, obvious forms, but history says otherwise. History says fortunes have been found in the smallest places. So tonight, when you hear the faint rattle of coins in a jar, when you see that copper glint at the bottom of a drawer, you'll know something most people don't. You'll know that the 1978 D Lincoln cent isn't just spare change. It's a question waiting to be answered. A possibility waiting to be discovered. A silent challenge. Are you willing to look? Because somewhere out there, one of these coins is still hiding. Untouched. Unrecognized. Worth far more than anyone who's ever spent it could have imagined, and the next great discovery won't be made by a museum or a millionaire. It will be made by someone exactly like you, someone who decided, just once, to check before they spent. So the next time a penny crosses your palm, don't dismiss it, turn it over, find the date, look for that tiny D. Study the surface. The shine. The details, because in a world where people dream of sudden wealth, of unexpected windfalls, of life-changing moments, the most powerful treasure might already be in your pocket. Somewhere in America, right now, a jar of loose change is sitting in the dark, and inside the jar could be a single copper coin worth more than a luxury home, not a gold coin, not a century-old relic. A 1976 D. Lincoln Cent, the same penny you've seen 1,000 times. The same date you've ignored, spent, dropped into tip jars, and walked past on the sidewalk. But what if I told you that one version of this ordinary coin has been talked about in hushed tones among collectors, chased through auctions, and, in its most flawless form, connected to market sales reported as high as $844,000? And what if the next one to be discovered is still in circulation? Because this story isn't just about a coin, it's about a moment in 1976, the year America turned 200, when billions of Lincoln cents rolled out of the Denver Mint, and a few of them left with secrets that turn pocket change into life-changing money. Most people will never notice the difference, but you're not most people. In the mid-1970s, the U.S. Mint was producing coins at a relentless pace. Demand was exploding. Machines ran longer. Dies wore down faster. Human eyes couldn't catch everything, and that's when the anomalies began, tiny variations. Microscopic shifts. Minting events that lasted seconds, but created coins that would be hunted for decades. The 1976 D penny looks simple at first glance. Lincoln's profile. The date. The small d beneath it, marking its origin in Denver. On the reverse, the familiar wheatless memorial design. Nothing unusual, until you look closer, because the value of this coin isn't in what everyone sees. It's in what almost no one sees. Collectors have reported examples with striking errors that transform this 1-cent piece into a 5-figure, and in elite condition, potentially 6-figure prize. Doubled dies that create a ghost-like second image in the lettering. Repunched mint marks, where the D was punched more than once, slightly offset, leaving a shadow that shouldn't exist. Off-center strikes that froze a split-second misalignment forever in copper. Broad strikes. Clipped planchets. Die cracks that look like lightning across Lincoln's coat. And then there are the coins that shouldn't exist at all. Pieces struck under the wrong pressure, on the wrong planchet, or from dies in a state of catastrophic failure. Each one a mistake, each one a payday. But here's where the story takes a turn, because error coins alone don't create legends, condition does. Most 1976 D pennies lived hard lives. They rattled in pockets. They scraped across counters. They sat for decades in coffee cans and glove compartments, but a microscopic number escaped untouched. Coins with blazing red luster, coins with razor-sharp details, coins so perfectly preserved they look like they were struck yesterday. In the grading world, this is the difference between a coin worth a few cents and a coin that triggers a bidding war. MS65, MS66, MS67. Each step up the scale doesn't just add value, it multiplies it, and when a top pop example appears, a coin finer than almost any other known, the price stops following logic. It follows desire, because there are more collectors chasing perfection than there are perfect coins. That's how modern pennies break into the realm of 5 and even 6 figures. That's how a coin once dismissed as common becomes a headline. And that's where the $844,000 number enters the conversation, the kind of auction result that sends shockwaves through the hobby and makes people across the country start digging through their change. Pause for a second and think about that point. $844,000 for a penny. How many times have you walked past one on the ground? How many have you handed to a cashier without looking at the date? Here's the truth that most people don't realize: of the 1976 D Lincoln Cent had a mintage in the billions, which means millions of them are still out there. In drawers, in jars, in old bankrolls, in inherited collections that no one has bothered to examine, and every single one of them has the same potential starting point, the same date, the same mint mark, the same chance to be the one. This is where the hunt becomes real, because you don't need a safe full of rare coins, you don't need a vault, you need a light, a magnifier, and the willingness to look closer than everyone else. Look at the date. Is there doubling? Look at the mint mark. Does it show a second impression? Scan the surfaces. Is the luster blazing, untouched, almost mirror-like? Check the strike. Are the details unusually sharp? Flip it over. Is the memorial crisp, every column defined? And then ask yourself the question that has changed ordinary people into overnight success stories: what if this is the one? Across America, collectors in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and beyond are rediscovering this hunt, not because it's a hobby, because it's a possibility. The possibility that the next coin you examine could fund a retirement, pay off a mortgage, change the trajectory of your family's future, all from something you once ignored. And the most powerful part of this story: These coins are still being found not in museums, not in private vaults.in, circulation.in, estate sales.in, rolls from local banks.in, the bottom of old piggy banks that haven't been opened in decades. Every discovery resets the market, every new high-grade example sends collectors scrambling. Every confirmed error creates a ripple of excitement that reaches far beyond the coin world, because it proves something people desperately want to believe: treasure is still out. They're not buried under the ocean, not locked behind glass. In your change right now.so. The next time you see a 1976 penny, don't dismiss it, hold it, turn it under the light, let the copper glow in your hand, because you're not just looking at a coin, you're looking at a question. A question that has made ordinary people stop in their tracks and whisper, what if? What if this is the doubled die no one noticed? What if this is the highest grade survivor? What if this is the coin that breaks the next auction record? What if this is the one that turns a single cent into a story you tell for the rest of your life? The truth is, most people will never check. They'll spend it. They'll ignore it. They'll let the opportunity pass through their fingers without a second thought. But a small group, the ones watching this, the ones who feel that spark, will start looking, and one of them will find something. A coin that shouldn't be special, but is a coin that shouldn't be valuable, but is a coin that everyone else had, but only they recognized. That's how every great coin discovery begins, not with wealth, with curiosity.so. Tonight, when you empty your pockets, when you open that drawer, when you pass the jar of change that's been sitting there for years, remember this: the next great American coin story might not come from a rare gold piece or a century-old silver dollared. It might come from a 1976 Lincoln cent still hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone who knows what to look for, or waiting for someone like you.